Hey folks, welcome to another another entry into my Clockwork Empires videos. My name is Alfred. Um, as you can see, I've just started just a quickie look at the current version of Clockwork Empires, version 34C. It's an experimental release, or experimental revision that was released just a couple of days ago. This won't be a full, 4 or 5 episode in-depth playthrough like I do with the official, the big stable releases. And that's largely because we're expecting we're expecting version 35 soon, in a week, something like that. This will just be a look at some of the newer stuff that's been introduced since 34, which was back in mid-December. I mean, things have been a little slow on the dev front largely because of the Christmas holidays. Everybody goes home and nothing happens for a week. I'm sure they all deserved their holidays. The devs, I've been very impressed by the work ethic and responsiveness of the devs on this game. So I'm sure their holidays are well deserved. The game's still in development. Saving and loading, still not as stable as I'd like it to be, but it's better than it was. There have been a bunch of behind-the-scenes revisions and tune-ups and polish and things. Let's see, for instance, Naturalists. Naturalists work again. For a while there, and up until the previous revision, 34B, Naturalists, not only did they not spawn with your starting crew, which was actually intended, so they don't do that anymore. That is to say, you can only get Naturalists by requesting them as favors from the Empire, which costs you 2 prestige. They were broken in 34B, so that they would also not explore. That's fixed, so they now do explore. Soldiers were also kind of broken in the previous experimental release, 34B again. It had something to do with scripting and the way soldiers would not drop things to shoot at invaders. So they were carrying logs back from the wilderness or whatever, and a fishman started stabbing them in the butt. They would not stop what they were doing until they had gotten all the way back to town, dropped the logs, and then only then would they fight back. That's been fixed. So now colonists and soldiers are able to, although it's a little bit buggy, they're able to drop what they're doing and respond to threats of violence. One of the new crops, or there's only one new crop. I'm going to grow it right now for your benefit. Is the new crop of bamboo. So I don't play much on the jungle biome, and I don't record it as much either. But that's where bamboo now normally grows. It's kind of swampy, humid jungle. And bamboo can be chopped down like trees and turned into bamboo poles, which can be processed at a carpentry workshop to provide you with planks. Speaking of planks, like a standing order for 5 planks. Mr. Orwesley's work crew. And let's get some people in here making stew. But yes, with the introduction of bamboo as a growable crop, games now have a renewable source of lumber. So you're less at the mercy of the whims of the random terrain generation. Let's clear some of this crud. Now, I'm not going to, this playthrough won't be as refined as some of my previous ones, and probably pretty short. I just want to show you the new stuff. So, let's see. Actually, before Oroxes eat my bushels of food, He had an eye on that bushel of black-capped fungus. But now he's steak. So I'm going to build a new workshop as well. The mine. So those of you who have been following this game since earliest access may remember that in some of the concept art there were what appeared to be, holes in the sides of hills, and like a big hole supported by 3 beams, and that was a mine with like cart tracks that went into it. That's not how mines have been implemented this time. I'm having a little bit of trouble. Here we go. The devs changed their minds a little bit on that, and so mines are now mine shafts that are contained. I'm a little trouble placing furniture. Okay, there we go. Mine shafts are now these mine elevators that are contained within a larger sort of mine shack superstructure. And with the introduction of mines, there is now a renewable source of minerals. So between the bamboo and the mines, it's now possible for your colony to be theoretically self-sufficient. And the way mines work, although you'll see it once it's completed, is so the way mines work is that you'll assign a crew to them, and that's it. You just leave them to do their thing. So you don't order up like in the kitchen here, right? I can specify a certain production level of things and a menu of options. In the mine, is that auroch stuck in a wall? In a mine, so it's an office type workshop, just like the chapel, and the crew that's assigned there will just do their thing automatically. In the case of the mine shaft, they'll enter the mine shaft, take the mine elevator down, and then come back up with an armload of random mineral nodes. It's like a bucket of sand, an armful of gold, whatever, like sphalerite ore. It's random, and they might very well be resources that are not present in your general vicinity, which is cool. And I do kind of like that it's random. In particular, I do like that you can now get glass from a mine instead of having to find a beach, which might be very far away and covered in fishmen. And even then, at that beach, there might not be sand dunes, which you would have to dig with shovels to produce buckets of sand. All this is problematic if you need those buckets of sand to make glass, so you can make a macroscope which you install in your laboratory so you can research a mysterious artifact which your naturalist has dug up out of the ground from a clump of grass. And now that I say that out loud, it makes me sound like a crazy man. But that's the way it works in this game. Now there's a way for me to get glass without finding a beach. And it's random, so if you really, really need that glass, you can build more than one mine. Tied to the idea of renewable resources, though, is the idea of maintenance, which is to say now items will... Let's get rid of this, let's turn you into steak first of all. Items will now take wear and tear and require maintenance. So a thing, if used enough, will break down. I don't know if it catches fire or what. I haven't actually observed that happening yet. Oh, bandits. 3 bandits. Let's beef up our military strength a little bit. You guys can be militia. Yeah, so when things break, you don't get them to use anymore. But they can be repaired. Presumably with some of the same resources that went into building them, but hopefully not quite as much. Because plainly if they cost the same to repair as to build, then I would just build a new one. Yeah, so we'll just wait for the bamboo and fruits of the mine to come in. And I think we need a real... Actually, we're okay for food, I think. Got a bunch of berries here. There have been some UI touches. The workroom menu operates much more smoothly now, and it doesn't hurt the game's frame rate nearly as much as it used to. The jobs menu, they've been organized into big tasks with sub-jobs, and then you can see who's doing what. This is my standing order for 10 stew, right? Henry Tarsley is busy making one. Ordered a bunch of people to pick berries in the wilderness and clear those clumps of grass. All very nice. If you look up the top here, number of idle work crews, right now you can see at a glance without having to open up the work crew menu and not being sure what crew is assigned to what. You look at this and say, 4 of my work crews are not actively doing workshop jobs. Either they're completely idle or they're doing those spontaneous jobs like hauling and farming. I think I mentioned the naturalist change already. You don't get one when you start. You have to get one through prestige. Paracrates. Parachute crates will break things they land on, which is problematic. If they land on your stockpile, they will demolish or they'll destroy the products they land on. And this can cause explosive things to explode. So see these mines? This mine exploding might set off this other mine exploding, which can also set off like crates of ammo and things. That falls under the category of things that are horrible, but I would also like to see. So the AI, I'm going to blather about the AI pathfinding for a little bit while we wait for the mine and the bamboo to come in. AI pathfinding has been given an overhaul. Prior to 34C, a colonist who wanted to find his way to something, like to a log to pick it up, or to the colony because he was far away, there was apparently a computationally expensive... Why is this guy carrying beetle meat? Where did he... must not get sidetracked. Okay. There's a computationally expensive calculation that involved 2 square roots. And when you multiply that across the world map, which is 512 by 512, and however many colonists you have, upwards of 30 sometimes, all having to pathfind their way, it had a significant impact on processing, basically. Available processing power, which, hurts your FPS. Anyway, AI pathfinding got an overhaul, and they implemented this thing called the brushfire algorithm, I believe it's called. It has a proper name. I only remember it's also called the brushfire algorithm because of the way it propagates itself across a grid. And what it is I'll check out these favors. So I'll take these criminals and food. Yes, brushfire algorithm. So that's a way for the computer to calculate a path back to a thing, or from a point to another point. And it's less computationally expensive, requires no square roots, and it's basically, because it's more efficient, lower impact calculation, it can be used more frequently and for a more widely varied number of purposes. And basically the way it works is the computer says, oh, I've got a stake at whatever, there's such and such a grid coordinate. Now, in the column of grid squares, say south of the stake, each successive grid square will be assigned a number that increments up by 1. And we'll repeat that the same way across, repeatedly across columns moving east until we hit the column with our colonist in it. And a colonist looks at these numbers and he follows the numbers backwards down in descending order, and voila, you have a path back to the stake. And there are no square roots, and it's fast and efficient. Which means so colonist pathfinding works better, and it's easier for the devs to implement zones that are okay to go to and zones that are not okay to go to. So it's not okay, in theory, it's not okay for colonists to wander through bandit camps. Right, because those are persistent threats that you probably don't want your bandits wandering through. Anyway, all in all, what that means is that game should run smoother, and it should see fewer performance hitches, and that's some of the background stuff that we don't get to, you know, when devs speak generally about optimization, we don't get to see a lot of it, but I like that kind of nuts and bolts stuff, right? And that's part of why I enjoy following this game through early access. I like seeing how refinements and development can influence sort of the final product. Our bamboo is coming in. I think we're doing okay. We'll just let this coast on autopilot for a little while. A thing I don't think I've touched on in previous videos is that some of the devs have been involved in implementing OpenGL standards, right? And there's a concept called AZDO, approaching zero driver overhead, or almost zero driver overhead. And the idea is that typically when the engine has to draw something, it makes a call to your video card, and your video card does a little bit of stuff, like it pulls up your object or whatever, and it draws it for you. And that can happen, hundreds or thousands of times, because lots of stuff is happening, and there's a lot to keep track of. Each of those tiny little calls takes time, right, and computational power. What AZDO says is that very broadly speaking, in as much as I understand it, by the way, what AZDO says is, instead of loading it all up one at a time as necessary, I am going to load it all up at the beginning, which means initializing a game takes longer. But then once the game is actually running, drawing these things is much quicker and has much less driver overhead, hence the ZDO part of it. And as such, the game should run smoother. It's the system resources it requires should be lower. In the early, very experimental applications of this, of AZDO, textures were hilariously broken. We'd get trees that were textured with human flesh, or people who were missing their heads. It was kind of hilarious. It's much better now, but that's sort of background stuff that happens that, when you use the umbrella term optimization, that's what they're talking about, right? And I can't even pretend to understand most of it. But it comes from the mouths of some very smart people, and it's fascinating to hear about, so that's that. So I think I'm going to wait for the bamboo harvest to come in, and I will probably cut it off there. I'll save a lengthier look for version 35, which again should be like a week, something like that. I'm keeping these guys busy. I have only one of my 9 work crews is doing stuff. If this was a real playthrough, I'd be doing other stuff, presumably. Let's get you picking berries. Colonists will now, they're motivated by hunger, so if they're starving, foraging in the wilderness for food becomes their highest priority. That's pretty cool, I think. I really could use more beds. Probably more wood as well. I believe this bamboo is nearly ready for harvest. Oh, the building view button has been changed a little bit. So you've got your default view everything building, so roofs and walls, but they become semi-transparent and lose their roofs when you mouse over them. There's this one where they're just solid all the time, I don't like that one actually. I'd like to be able to see what's going on inside, right? I need to know if I've just got this opaque building and no food is coming out, I need to know what's going on in there. Then this is the view I usually leave it on, which is transparent walls, no roof. Oh, and this one's the new one, which is no walls at all, just doors and floors. Oh, are they ready to harvest? No. There was a nice little graphical touch. They've added Zeds to sleepers. Those used to be much bigger, like bigger and annoying. So I'm kind of glad they're small and semi-transparent now. So here's life in a colony. I mean, I think it's going pretty well. I'm a little bit puzzled by the presence of raw beetle steak, because giant beetles, which is where we get beetle steak, are not supposed to spawn in this biome. Giant beetles only spawn natively, or I guess prior to this revision, had only spawned natively in the jungle biome. And in fact, I haven't seen any giant beetles with my own eyes in the temperate biome, but I have seen giant beetle steak, which is kind of weird. I don't even know where it's coming from. Have they been, oh, what the? Somebody explored a long way in this direction for some reason. There are some little quirks about ownership. So, between 34B and 34C, the devs were thinking about implementing an ownership system where if things were stolen from you, basically, yeah, so if bandits came and stole your stuff and they took an armful of logs back to their camp or whatever, the problem was colonists would still consider those logs to be fair game for hauling. So, hilariously, they would like hike over to the bandit camp to try and pick up stuff to bring back to your stockpile, which would inevitably result in them being killed. So once ownership is implemented, in theory what will happen is that logs bandits steal will no longer be, they'll no longer be flagged as valid targets for colonist hauling. Now, I think as pertains to our giant beetle issue here, what's happening is for some reason there's a giant beetle corpse and colonists are, they're hauling and they're just looking for stuff to haul, and the AI says, hey, there's giant beetle here in the fog of war. And so my colonists go off in a conga line and bring back a beetle carcass without me explicitly having said so, which is cool, but also kind of unintuitive. Like, I would expect colonists to pick up stuff they find in the wilderness, you know, if it's meat or whatever. Oh, and here we go. I believe our first armload of bamboo poles. Right, they can be used like logs. For instance, well, I could turn them into planks in this workshop. Yeah, so those are the fruits of the new stuff. I'm going to cut it off here, actually. It's running a bit long. But yeah, that's some of the new stuff in this version. Mines, bamboo, AI overhaul, UI refinements, optimization fixes. Yeah, thanks so much for listening to me ramble on. I'll be back. I'll probably have a new video next week when 35 launches. Alright, so keep playing Clockwork Empires, I guess, and have a good one.